Tonight, running for their lives. A record earthquake in Japan triggers a mammoth tsunami that washes away everything in its path. Hundreds are dead. The search for victims just beginning. I'm Katie Couric. Extensive coverage tonight of the disaster in Japan and the tsunami that spread across the Pacific to the U.S., reaching the West Coast. Japan declares a state of emergency at a nuclear plant as radiation levels surge. The area around it is evacuated. And the Ring of Fire, why this area of the Pacific is so vulnerable to earthquakes.
From CBS News World Headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. It is Saturday morning in Japan. The sun is up and the extent of the catastrophe is becoming painfully clear. It's been nearly 24 hours since a powerful earthquake touched off a huge tsunami that swept across Japan's east coast. The quake, a magnitude 8.9, was the fifth largest in modern history. Centered off Japan's northeast coast, it was felt for 1,300 miles. Very early reports say more than 400 people are dead. Japan's Kyodo news agency says the final number is expected to top 1,000. Most of the victims drowned. Nearly 1,000 are reported injured, more than 500 are missing, and 4 million homes and businesses lost power. The first estimate of the damage, $10 billion. That damage includes a nuclear reactor in northeastern Japan. Radiation levels are soaring and the area is being evacuated. Most flights between the U.S. and Japan have been canceled, and there were fears the tsunami would pound the U.S. But by the time the waves reached Hawaii and the West Coast this morning, they had lost most of their punch. President Obama said he's heartbroken by the disaster. U.S. assistance is already on the way to Japan. Lucy Kraft is there.
The monster quake, thought to be the largest in Japan's history, triggered a ferocious series of tsunamis. A 23-foot wall of water poured over the northern Japanese coastline with little warning. Only minutes after the quake hit, sweeping away everything and everyone in its path. Cars were tossed like toys. Boats were battered by the tide. This tanker was swept up onto the shore. Another ship fought to escape a massive whirlpool. And the fate of the boat and its crew is unknown.
We're at Tsunami, obviously coming in several sweeps.
Minutes later, a second deadly wave. Surging water overtook coastal city streets, ripping fishing boats from their moorings and swamping buildings. The tide forced its way up to 3 miles inland. The city of Sendai's local airport was submerged. The muddy water rolled over the tarmac, sending horrified travelers to the rooftop in search of high ground. Sendai, home to 1 million people, saw the worst of the disaster. Police say up to 300 bodies have already been found. Street after street was reduced to rubble.
All we see is a pile of debris. And we've been looking for people, but we see nobody.
More than 90 aftershocks, some registering a magnitude 6 or higher, were felt along a 1,300-mile stretch of Japan's coastline. Nearly a dozen nuclear power plants were shut down, including one 170 miles northeast of Tokyo. The cooling system failed when the electricity went out, raising pressure in the nuclear core and forcing authorities to announce they would vent radioactive vapor. While they say the gas is not a health or environmental threat, thousands of people within a 6-mile radius of the plant were evacuated. Throughout the country, people were stunned by the violence of the quake. It's really frightening, this woman said in the town of Yokohama, where people were literally dodging falling debris.
I've never experienced such shaking before. I could not keep standing, and I've never experienced such an earthquake before.
Skyscrapers swayed in Tokyo, 240 miles southwest of the quake's epicenter, sending people running out of office buildings and into the streets. Shaken commuters were stranded as train and subway service, usually moving 10 million people per day, came to a grinding halt. And streets were jammed with cars going nowhere. By nightfall, fires were widespread throughout the quake zone. A fire at this large oil refinery in the city of Ichihara was out of control. Its flames, hundreds of feet high, were visible for miles. Authorities are urging citizens to stay in their evacuation centers, not to try and go look at their homes because of the continuing threat of aftershocks and tsunami. Katie?
But Lucy, it is daylight now in Japan. What are we learning?
We're seeing on TV just scenes of utter tragedy. Houses with their roofs ripped off, whole villages destroyed, at least 2 villages destroyed. A forest thrown like a pile of chopsticks onto a bunch of houses. It's just heartbreaking to see.
The actual quake, I know, occurred several hours north of Tokyo by car. How difficult has it been to make contact with anyone living close to the epicenter?
Very difficult. Landline, cell phone, it doesn't matter. It's been almost impossible to get through to people in Sendai. I know this myself because I have a son there who goes to school, Katie, and we haven't been able to reach him since before the earthquake started. This part of Japan is normally very accessible. There's a high-speed bullet train that can get you there in just a couple of hours. The bullet trains have been halted, and the highways also are accessible only to emergency vehicles right now.
Well, Lucy Kraft in Tokyo. Lucy, thank you so much, and I certainly hope you'll be able to reach your son very, very soon. Thank you so much. After the tsunami devastated Japan, the fear was other countries across the Pacific would be hit next. Tsunami warnings went up in 53 countries, including the United States, where there were some very anxious moments on the West Coast. John Blackstone is there.
The images from Japan show the terrifying destructive power of waves up to 30 feet high. Devastation as far as the eye could see as a tsunami rolled across the Pacific, surging all the way to coastal California, where boats were ripped from their moorings.
So what you have in the case of Japan is the old Pacific Ocean seafloor actually plunging underneath the island of Japan.
It began deep below the ocean, 80 miles off the Japanese coast. The Pacific plate slipped violently, rupturing a section of the sea floor nearly 200 miles long and 100 miles wide. The explosion of energy created powerful waves radiating across the ocean, moving as fast as 600 miles an hour. In the deep ocean, the waves are not high, but when they hit shallow water near shore, the crest can be dramatic and deadly. Just how deadly became clear in the Indonesian tsunami of 2004 that killed 230,000 people. The death toll for this tsunami is still not known, partly because its impact spread so far. Where it started in Japan, waves were so high the gauges to measure them were broken. In Soma, Japan, the crest hit 24 feet. Over the next hours, the tsunami spread across the Pacific. At 8:27 Eastern Time, waves of nearly 6 feet washed onto the beaches of Maui. 2 hours later, the tsunami began hitting the California coast. There, waves reached nearly 8 feet high in Crescent City, destroying the harbor and wrecking boats.
It looks like a tornado hit it, like you see in the Midwest.
In Santa Cruz, south of San Francisco, surge after surge swept into the harbor, washing boats back and forth as owners looked on helplessly.
This is really scary. I'm sorry. I'm kind of emotional. I gotta go.
South of Los Angeles, in Orange County, a helicopter pilot watched as the tsunami surge made a canal flow backwards.
That's dramatic video there, buddy.
Despite warnings to stay away, 5 people were swept out to sea. 4 in Oregon were rescued, but 1 man in Northern California is still missing. Katie?
John Blackstone in San Francisco tonight. John, thank you. Japanese authorities declared a state of emergency at that nuclear plant damaged by the quake as radiation levels spiked. More on that from Nancy Cordes.
The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant was designed to withstand the fiercest of earthquakes. As soon as the plant lost power, diesel generators kicked in. even as workers like Danny Udy were dodging the crashing debris, trying to get out.
He said he cut his feet and it slowed him down. And that's what he said he said that was my lucky point. It slowed me down. He said, or otherwise, if I'd have been a little faster, I would have been in the tsunami and washed out to sea.
But then at least one of the generators failed, crippling the cooling system that pumps thousands of gallons of water through one of the plant's 6 reactors. Heat began to build, and so did pressure in the form of steam. Plant managers began considering releasing some steam into the reactor's containment unit, or even into the air, to prevent an uncontrolled leak like the one at Pennsylvania's 3 Mile Island in 1979.
So humans can withstand a certain amount of radioactive vapor with no problems?
Right, because what you do is when you have that vapor released from the site, it automatically goes into the atmosphere and spreads out. So it's not a significant amount, and it's not a concentrated amount.
Still, when radiation levels inside the plant climbed to 1,000 times the normal level, the evacuation area was expanded from a 2-mile radius to a 6-mile radius. Japan's 55 nuclear reactors provide about a third of the nation's power. 11 of them were in the earthquake zone.
The fact is that a dozen of these reactors have shut down and have done what they were designed to do.
But now comes word that the cooling system has failed at a second nuclear plant. Extra generators are being trucked in because getting a consistent source of power to the systems at both plants is going to be the key to averting a meltdown, Katie.
Nancy Cordes. Nancy, thank you. The pictures alone give you an idea of the sheer force of this earthquake. Now consider this. At a magnitude of 8.9, it was more than 700 times stronger than last year's devastating quake in Haiti, and about 2,000 times stronger than the 1994 Northridge earthquake in California. Dr. Lucy Jones is a seismologist with the U.S. Geological Survey. Dr. Jones, how surprised were scientists by the magnitude of this quake?
Well, a mixed bag. It is a plate boundary. We know that these things happen, but this is the largest earthquake in the last 140 years around Japan. And some of the maps had said they thought that northern part would never have such a large earthquake. Obviously, that's not the case.
How does this tsunami compare to the one that struck Thailand and Indonesia back in 2004?
This tsunami is a bit smaller than the Indian Ocean tsunami because the earthquake is a bit smaller. I mean, a tsunami happens because you have a massive earthquake on a huge fault that moves a large part of the seafloor up, and the water that used to be there has to go somewhere else.
Could this type of undersea earthquake happen along the United States coastline?
There are 2 places in the United States where we have a similar type of fault that will also produce a big earthquake and a big tsunami. One is the Aleutian Arc around Alaska, and the other, much more dangerously, is the Pacific Northwest. There's one of these types of faults running all the way from Cape Mendocino in the south to the island of Victoria in British Columbia in the north.
What can scientists, in your view, hope to learn from this event?
This is going to be the best recorded earthquake ever. The Japanese have spectacular instrumentation, and I think we're going to learn a lot more about the fundamental nature of earthquakes. We're also going to be learning a lot about how buildings behave in these very largest events, and especially the cities of Seattle and Portland should hope that we're looking very, very carefully at just how the Japanese buildings behaved.
Dr. Lucy Jones of the U.S. Geological Survey. Dr. Jones, thanks so much. Those areas that Dr. Jones mentioned are all in the so-called Ring of Fire. Coming up next, why it's the source of the world's deadliest disasters. And later, another dark day in history. Newly released tapes from the day President Reagan was shot. Japan is no stranger to deadly earthquakes. The one that hit Kobe in 1995 killed more than 6,000 people. And in 1923, a quake started fires that destroyed much of Tokyo. leaving 140,000 dead. But today's earthquake was far stronger, one of the 5 most powerful in the last 100 years. The Great Chilean Quake of 1960 tops that list, a magnitude 9.5. All those disasters struck in what's known as the Ring of Fire, a horseshoe-shaped series of underwater fault lines. Harry Smith explains why the Ring of Fire is one of the most dangerous places in the world.
Just last month, a magnitude 6.3 earthquake destroyed sections of Christchurch, New Zealand. More than 100 people died. 1 year before that, an 8.8 trembler struck Chile. More than 500 died. Today's massive earthquake off the coast of Japan registered a massive 8.9. Though separated by thousands of miles, each of these quakes occurred on the Ring of Fire, a 25,000-mile line along the Pacific Rim that is the most geologically active place on the planet, with more than 450 volcanoes. Most of the world's earthquakes occur along this line. The culprit, the Pacific Plate. The floor beneath the ocean is constantly shifting.
It's a very large system. And second, it's moving pretty fast. The Pacific Plate is moving under Japan at about 10 centimeters a year.
Right.
Which is a pretty high rate.
Trillions of tons of earth moving 4 inches a year is a lot. An irresistible force meeting an unmovable object.
And you do that for 100 years, you're talking about a big amount that you got to
compensate
snap
for.
Back. And when it pops back, it produces the earthquake and the tsunami because it's doing it under the ocean.
Japan's level of seismic activity is about 10 times that of California. The country has spent billions trying to make itself earthquake-proof. Today's video showed buildings in Shinjuku swaying but not collapsing. The U.S. has started to install shock absorbers under buildings as well, but has some catching up to do.
Nobody's ever prepared for this kind of earthquake, but compared to Japan, probably we're not nearly as prepared as Japan.
Scientists say Alaska and the Pacific Northwest are the most vulnerable to an earthquake comparable to the one that struck Japan today. Along the Ring of Fire, it's only a matter of time. Harry Smith, CBS News, New York.
The Pentagon is sending at least 8 Navy ships to provide aid to Japan. If you'd like to help the victims, you can go to cbsnews.com. We have links to organizations involved in the relief effort. And when we come back, a split-second decision that saved a president's life.
George Washington fast.
The Gaddafi regime has the momentum now in the battle for Libya. After forcing the opposition to retreat from Ras Lanuf yesterday, Gaddafi's Air Force today pounded rebels holed up at the refinery outside town. And in the west, loyalists retook Zawiya after battling rebels for weeks. At the White House today, President Obama said the U.S. and NATO are still considering military action against Gaddafi. In other news, it was 30 years ago this month that Ronald Reagan, just 70 days into his presidency, was shot by John Hinckley Jr. Reagan was gravely wounded, but he would survive. Today, the Secret Service released 10 minutes of dramatic audio tape from that day. Bill Plant, who covered the Reagan White House, has the sound and the story.
Seconds after President Reagan exits the Washington Hilton comes the radio call the Secret Service dreads.
Guys, we've had shots fired. There are some injuries. Lay one on.
Agent Jerry Parr, head of the presidential detail, shoves Ronald Reagan into his armored limo. As it speeds off, Parr at first reports that the president, codenamed Rawhide, was not hit.
Rawhide is okay. Follow up. Rawhide is okay. Back to the White House. Back to the White House. Rawhide is okay.
Then a telltale bloody foam on the president's lips. Agent Parr knows that means a punctured lung.
We want to go to the emergency room of George Washington. That's the Roger. Go to George Washington fast.
As the limo, with no police escort, rushes to George Washington University Hospital, the president's condition appears to deteriorate. Agent Parr remains dead calm.
Get an ambulance. Get the stretcher.
3.5 minutes after he was shot here, President Reagan walked into the hospital. The president collapsed in the emergency room, far more seriously wounded than we knew then. Bill Plant, CBS News, Washington.
Arizona Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords also survived an assassination attempt. Today, her doctor said she's recovering, quote, by leaps and bounds. Her breathing tube is out. She's walking and speaking better. She has been told she was shot, but she has no memory of it. A gunman killed 6 people in that January attack. Giffords and 12 others were wounded. And coming up next, the latest on the disaster in Japan. An update now on our top story. It is Saturday morning in Japan, and the search continues for victims of the earthquake and tsunami. First reports say at least 400 people are dead, the number expected to go much higher. The earthquake damaged a Japanese nuclear reactor. Officials declared a state of emergency and ordered an evacuation as radiation levels spiked. President Obama has pledged to help with the relief effort. He's sending at least 8 U.S. Navy ships to Japan. And that is the CBS Evening News for tonight. I'm Katie Couric. Don't forget to set your clocks ahead 1 hour this weekend for daylight saving time. I'll see you Monday at the usual time. Good night.